Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. Good to be here tonight. We're live. It's 8:30 p.m. on the Eastern side, and I have a wonderful guest today, one that I've been dying to talk with and known about her work and got familiar with her work a while ago. The lovely Maressa Voss. How are you tonight?
I'm great. After that was a hell of a walk-in.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I try.
Yeah, that was great. I'm really good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
How does it work with chat? Do I actively chat with people as they say hi, or
so real quick? I'll cover a couple things. There's a little bit of a lag, no matter who I talk with. It's just internet. If I interrupt you, I'm so sorry. It's not on purpose. As far as the comments go, I'll throw up like questions if they come in. But you can, if you peek over and I don't throw it up or haven't thrown it up yet, you do answer whatever you want.
Cool.
So so let everybody know where you're coming from tonight. Where do you hail from, if you will?
Yes, I hail from a small hill in a canyon in Santa Barbara, California. That's where I'm broadcasting from. I'm in my small house in front of my crammed singular bookshelf.
Nice.
And my husband's just taken my tiny child out for tacos. So we're all alone except for my cats and I.
Tacos. So I was born in California, which is weird.
Really?
To me, because like I was 2 years old maybe when they left, my mom and dad. I was born at Edwards Air Force Base.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't remember anything. Where is Santa Barbara?
Yeah, Santa Barbara it's an hour and a half north of Los Angeles on the coast.
Okay. So you're not okay. That's another thing. You're away from all the turmoil.
Yeah, there's a little bit of spillage. People are looking for places to stay. And I had a friend come through when it was hot again, come and get a meal with me for a little bit of sanity check. But for the most part, we're unscathed, but we're not.
You're just seeing the aftermath of it, kind of seeing it's basically your neighbor. That's basically going on. It's like the neighborhood down the street almost.
Yeah, and if it's not them, it's us. I mean, we're constantly on fire over here. The home that I'm in, the canyon, there's still scorch marks on trees from a fire 4 years ago that almost got the house. So
knowing you're a mother,
yes.
Like I can't imagine, just the kind of things you have to worry about, in that specific location.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That would worry me. I'm sure it does.
Yeah, it's the emergency communication systems are really solid, and the evacuation systems are really solid, and we've got a good fire road.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a consideration for sure. It's how much it's a trade-off, like how much nature and kind of like removal from the milieu of town do you want, and in exchange for how much risk. So
yeah, Mother Nature is not a force to be reckoned with. She's definitely intense. So the wonderful wife, I'm glad to see her instantly when we first started. This is my wife. She must have gotten the kids down somewhat successly. When there's 4 of them, like there's a really high chance that one of them at least is going to give her shit. Like, so that's a good thing seeing her so quickly.
That's awesome.
And she's been telling me this question she popped up that I'll ask her in just a minute. Okay, so you're coming from California. Yep. Your mom, a wife. That's awesome. We'll start here. Where would you say your love for literature, whether it was reading or writing first, started for you?
Bob books when I was 5. Those were the first books I read.
Bob books?
Bob books. No, I am not one of those writers that has been writing stories since I was 9, scribbling in a notebook. I just have loved books since I could read. And it was just voracious consumption throughout my whole childhood, teenage years, bit of a steep fall off a cliff when I was in school. And then, to be honest, like read a book here and there in my 20s. But I'm in my mid 30s, and somewhere in my late 20s, with social media ramping up, I realized I hadn't read a book in like a year, and it was a huge part of my identity. Yeah. And I was like, I can't take myself seriously. I call myself a bookworm, like whatever.
Sure.
And so it took a bit of time to like really reclaim my ability to focus on a book.
I get that for sure.
Yeah. And I'm happy to say that it is possible. You can reclaim your attention span.
Now
So
you have to be doom scrolling all day. There is other parts of the day, right?
yeah, lots and lots of other parts. Would you excuse me? There's one thing I forgot.
Please, no, absolutely.
For this.
Please, yeah, 100%. So while she's doing that, guys, what are you guys reading? Put it in the comments. That's always an easy question to ask, but I'm always interested because, there it is. Nice. I know. Didn't expect that. That's badass, dude.
I just wanted to fit in, that you've had so many acclaimed male authors on here with beards to stroke that I thought that this would be fitting.
That's amazing. That is awesome. Who brings a beard to that is a one of a kind surprise, and I'm so glad you did that. And honestly, I think you're showing me up a little bit because it looks nice.
It's really well coiffed, it's shiny. I've been putting some oil on it from time to time.
Yeah, I've been conditioning it, brushing it out. That's hilarious. That's awesome.
I don't think I can do this whole interview with this on.
I know. I think anybody would expect you to.
So, I'll do one question. I'll take one question.
There we go. So I'll throw out my wife's then. It's a little. We don't have to jump full into this, but I will throw her question up. And we'll get to more like details here in a minute. But the title intrigues my wife a lot, and she wants to kind of know more. So if you would touch on a couple things, starting with like a synopsis of what someone who is not familiar with the book can expect, and kind of the plans going forward, whether it's part of a series, blah blah blah, and genre too.
Yeah, can't do that with the beard.
Yes, I can blame you.
But yeah. So when shadows grow tall, the title is suggestive of dark things to come. And yeah, it's a story told in the style of more classic epic fantasy. Sure, think LOTR or more recently like Name of the Wind. And so analog Middle Ages, light magic, a soft magic system, I should say. Yeah, right around the time, it's not our Middle Ages, but an analog one. So think mid 1500s, right around the time the printing press is coming to prominence. And that features quite heavily into the plot and some of the larger themes of the plot. So that's kind of the backdrop, nondescript European Middle Ages. And it's a small country and it's reasonably isolated. This book does not go into the larger world building, but essentially what's at stake is it's a changing of the guards insofar as leadership is concerned. And there's a despotic ruler, Osbert, who's come to power. And so on one side of the coin, we have the normies, and the normie POV is Kylene, and she is the daughter of a prominent printer who's wanted for sedition. And he's been naughty things on his press. And so when he has to run away, Kylene, she's 16 at the time, she doesn't know anything that he's involved with. So her whole character arc is concerned with figuring out what he was up to. And on the other side of the coin, we have Lovelace and Gunnar, who are two kind of druidic style rangers. And they are members of an order of men called Dactyli. And the Dactyli are this sequestered, centuries old brotherhood. And their whole thing throughout time has been to be truth keepers, truth curators. You could think of them as historians, but their whole objective purpose is to go around the land and gather truths from people and other chroniclers. But also a feature of this world is that the earth is sensate. So the earth is actively perceiving everything that it's experiencing. So they also go around and collect events as they happened, from trees and stones. Like, think of like a really prominent tree in a town square.
That's fascinating.
Might have a perspective, that subjective humans filtering reality through their brain boxes don't. So that's their whole thing. But their order is in decay, and people are no longer as interested in the stuff they're shilling. So, and then what's more, they've found out that there's a rogue Dactyli who has sort of left the order, and he has been killing nascent Dactyli, who are young boys with the potential. And also, well, I can't spoil anymore. He's doing all kinds of bad stuff. So they set out on their own in the quest to figure out what he's up to. Sort of, they are told not to. So it's against they're breaking their oath for sure. So those are the two setups, and that's more or less the story you can expect to explore in this first book.
No, I think you outlined that well, and without like spoiling anything. That's wonderful. Thanks. What genre? Epic fantasy? Anything else?
I don't really know. I'm still not sure what literary fiction is technically. However, the themes and the type of language that I use, the prose is more lyrical. The themes are complex. So perhaps I've been calling it like a literary fantasy, simply because it's not like dragon smut.
Yeah, so I find that it would have eluded me like exactly to narrow it down, but I think what you just said was perfect. Literary fantasy, that's great. That's perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the wifey says, wow, impressed. This is very well thought out. And I think that's a good point. Like, well, I guess we'll go into it. So when you started, we'll start here. I'm mixing my words here. Where should I start with? Because I start different with everybody. You've talked about how you started reading again in your late 20s. What gave you an inspiration to not only continue to read, pick a book back up, but say, hey, I want to write one of these?
I think I always wanted to write one. I mean, the reading thing was really just, it was kind of like, how could I ever have stopped? It's a huge part of how I expand my worldview and how I don't know, assimilate like whatever issues I'm dealing with. Like that resonance that you find in literature has always been so helpful. So I think that I, on the one hand, wanted to do that for other people, but I also I love the magic of wordplay. And for that reason, I've always wanted to write a book. And then 2020 rolled around, and I had a pretty nice job as the director of operations for a hummus company where I was working virtually, and it was dessert hummus. And dessert hummus is not an essential food, if you didn't know. So it was one of those things, Target cut it, Publix cut it, a lot of big accounts. So the company was in dire straits, and a big CEO got brought in, and I walked away. And it was just an opportunity to kind of take the plunge. We knew that we were going to have a baby soonish. My husband's got the lion's share of the work now from the financial perspective. He's a commercial fisherman.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very interesting stuff to talk about. And his work in that whole world features really heavily into
I'm gonna have to have him on now.
Yeah, the project I'm working on now. He's the guy at parties that everyone's like, wow,
we're gonna talk fishing.
So interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna talk fishing.
Yeah, it's fun. So that situation just created a window for me to start working on this book. I wrote it in a year. I wrote the first draft in a year, started querying it, wrote a second draft. It wasn't ready, and ended up selling it to a small press after 2 years before I started it, which is pretty cool. Probably I've said it enough in other interviews now where I I know I shouldn't admit that this is the first book I've ever written, but it is, and I'm proud of it. So
whatever the honesty is, that's what it is, because I get what you're saying, but I think that's very special, and not everybody has that experience. So just, I would say, savor your honest, experience, because I've heard similar, stories of like a published author saying the exact same thing, like never expected to, get an agent quick, or it happened in 2 days, or it took me 10 years, and every single story is different, and I love that.
Yeah.
So, pantser, outliner?
I'm a pantser, 100%. Well,
no, that's incredible.
I mean, I think I fall more in the planter camp, and I really, really love to hear when people talk about the flashlight method, because that feels really authentic to my experience. So it's like, largely who the people are, and you've got this flashlight and you're standing in the dark and you can shine it and you see exactly where you're going. You just have no idea what it looks like in between where you are and where the light's being shown.
There's another word like discovery writing. I think I've heard something like that. Maybe.
I don't know that well enough to pass comment
there. I like the spotlight version though, because that narrows that gives me a visual. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and then for me, this is now I've written a few books. This is the only one that's published, but for me, the ending kind of appears, a third to half the way through, and so what you're working towards, and then it's a lot more work for second and third drafts, but part of the fun for me is seeing what comes up without the rigidity of form. So yeah,
that's incredible. So I think it's very interesting anytime, because I've tried to keep things cohesive and just write like pantsing or something along those lines, and for me, I have to have something solid and maybe know the ending. I don't know exactly. I haven't really even got a chance to explore writing myself. I really want to, but I do know that pantsing, being a pantser, whatever you call it, is not for me. Yeah. I can't. The continuity goes out the window. So bravo to anybody that can keep things straight and not have to necessarily have every single detail written down, because that's not how my brain works.
I think that's just how it is. I mean, I think that pantsers think that plotters are like clinically insane and vice versa.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
Yeah. But tell me how that's going for you. I'm so curious, because this isn't the first time I've heard you say that you're aspiring. Do you mind if I just flip the interviewer interviewee? Like,
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. So I guess where I'm at right now is the same place I've been for a really long time. A couple other interests hit me more as passion than writing, at least for now, being narrating. I'm learning the audio software, which is crazy left turn, because I'd never used anything like that. Yeah. Getting soundproofing for the room I'm using. But now I'm finally making samples. So that's kind of my passion project right now.
Awesome. Are you someone who does voices?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. So you tend to go like full ensemble cast.
I guess it would just depend on, what the cast was, maybe what was going on. I do play good Forrest Gump.
That's pretty good.
I enjoy Forrest Gump. I can do some British. I don't know if I'm going to do that live yet. Once I have some more confidence, perhaps.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate the question, because that gives me a chance to talk about myself, right? Who doesn't want to do that?
We love that. Yeah. It's good. No, I know. I love the production side of things. I love reading other people's stuff. I can't imagine narrating my own book. Even though I know exactly how every phrase is supposed to sound, it's not good.
You think it'd be too close to the work? It's just something, you're too close to it?
I strangely enough, just don't think I could take it seriously enough to not break character. Like I would find an error, like at something I would self-edit. Like as
you're judging the whole thing as you're trying to read it.
Yeah.
I could see myself doing that too. I think it's also fun. Like, I don't like to watch my interviews, because I'm like everybody else, at least what I think everybody else feels about their own voice. And I don't like my voice, because I hear a voice that's very different from what you guys hear.
Yeah.
And it's weird to me.
Yeah.
So how did the small press happen? You said you queried and they get a hold of you and then kind of just take on a book and they get the cover done? And how was that process done for you?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it because I do think, there are so many pathways to publishing.
Yes.
And mine feels like kind of unique to what a lot of what you're hearing on Twitter. I mean, yes and no. So I didn't know how to query when I was querying it to agents, and I was querying my first draft, which is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. So I didn't get a ton of agent interest for this story. I didn't know how to write a query letter. I didn't know anything about comparative works. So I think I queried like 100 agents and got 2 full requests and no offers. And I, at that time, was like, I know I've written something readable. I am willing to self-publish this, but I'm going to try to go small press first. And so I queried a handful of small presses, just a few. I was feeling really burnt out at that point in time, and I had been, I'd just given birth. So I was quite
yeah, you were laid up. I get that.
Yeah, with awesome. The first child, which Ashley can attest to, like the whole just identity shifts and just the shifts in your day-to-day rhythm, so intense. So I want to ask you both after this, like I'm hoping that the jump to 2 is not as intense, but we'll shelve that one for a minute. So yeah, I queried a few, but was kind of just like, I'm going to work on this weird short story about my postpartum feelings, which ended up getting published. It came out in December.
Oh, wow.
And I got a letter back from a small press in the UK in January, 4 months after my son was born. And, it was a good deal, no advance, but really good royalties and the whole kit and caboodle. They did the cover, they did the editing, all the distribution. Like I don't have to worry about any of that. So all told, it's been a really, really positive experience. Of course, I'd love, more high touch and dollars being funneled on the marketing side. But I think it's allowed me to really get my hands dirty and just really understand the whole industry without it being kind of processed through like a publisher or an editor. From one of the big 5 houses. So yeah. And then it took about 13 months, the pipeline, really long pipeline, editing, copy edits, design, all that stuff. And
it gave you an opportunity to feel out this process, at least the process as it happened for you.
Yeah.
And get a sense of how things are done and how to better query in the future. Cause I remember you saying that it's not a good idea to do at the first draft.
I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it. I mean, I still did it.
So what will you do next time? Like the finished product, you'll have it edited first, or?
Yeah. So I've got a book. I've written the first draft and I'm making my way through third draft. So I've got it's a stitch together first and a second draft. And with the third draft that I'm working on, I will plan to fully query it. I have been like drip feed querying it, which is again, super unwise, but you finish something and you're kind of like, you're so siloed when you're working that you're like, I just want some sort of feedback.
Sure.
So, I would not advise you query a first draft, but I do think it's good, just to kind of test batch the query letters. And so that was helpful to me, even though, I got quite a bit of bites with the query, far more than I got with this first project, but the work just wasn't polished enough to get an offer. So,
okay. I get what you're saying.
In the next couple months, I'll be there.
Yeah. I love that. And that's a very cool thing to go through, I'm sure, especially from a learning aspect, because I just wouldn't know really what to expect and having a story to tell, because I've heard so many different, and I'm appreciative to anyone that kind of talks about their process and how it happened for them, because it's all different. Yeah. I don't think anybody reaches that goal of publishing a book the same way as another person. So that's really cool to hear. Who are let's say, who are a couple authors that you would say have their hand in the way that you write your prose?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question, because I am I'm all over the place from like genre and like who's been really inspirational to me. But from a stylistic perspective, currently writing, I really, really, really admire Alex E. Haro. I think that she has just the most stunning turns of phrase that just punch you right in the heart. And she's also really good at, making everything magical. So I love her.
Alex E. Haro, you said?
Alex E. Haro. Yeah, she's written standalone. Starling House was the most recent.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
6 Deaths of the Saint is like an outstanding short story. But going back, so that's like bookending it. That's like the beginning, and then or the end, and then in the beginning, there's so many influences. But I was actually thinking about this the other day. You ever read any Brian Jacques books like Redwall?
No, I have somebody sent me the Redwall to read with my kids when they're old enough. So that's going to come soon, but no, I haven't.
Yeah. So I just, I hadn't thought about Brian Jacques as an influence throughout this whole process. But the other day I was like noticing how fixated I am on like describing food. And specifically like tavern food, hunks of cheese and really
frogs of beer.
Yes, the beer and like the beautiful bread, and yes, and just sort of the way that he mixes like the pastoral with. I mean, for him, it's a lot of castle life, depending on the story. But I think that he was pretty influential for me in like the way that I set a scene. And what I focus on, the atmospherics, the elements, the nature, the food. Yeah.
Is he he's more of a descriptive guy with food? I wouldn't know because
there's actually there's a Redwall Twitter bot on that just purely spits out all of his food descriptions.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you guys have not checked it out.
That sounds fun. Yeah, I'm excited for it. And if I would have read any, I guess I didn't read it all until I was 29. But if I would have read Redwall, especially, I feel like I would have gained a lot of inspiration. I have a lot of people I can name off the top of my head, or at least know their face and recognize that Redwall was huge for them. So you're not alone in that. And that's an answer I get a lot. And it's very interesting because he must have been one hell of a writer. And obviously he is. I can't wait to get to his work.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is a good story to read with kids. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read one in a while, but I just crushed them. I think when I was like in 5th, 6th grade, and then that was the beginning. But beyond that, yeah.
That was Christmas last year.
Is that a square?
No, I think that's.
Oh wow! It was just the angle you're holding it at.
Yeah. So the author Michael Schultheis, he's a science fiction author, fantasy author, and huge for him. And he sent me. It's like a 6-book collection, and was super thankful. But even more so, I know that there was such a big inspiration to him. So I get to see into that world here soon, and I'm excited.
Yeah, good. I think you're in for it. Kind of one of those things.
I would say Harry Potter was that for me. Now, I didn't necessarily read every word of the books, but I do remember 3rd grade Miss Couvillon's class starting. And anybody who brought in the hardcover of the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone, depending on where you live, I was jealous because they were beautiful. And so I feel like part of the passion I have now started then. I just didn't recognize it. Because again, I didn't read a single book until I was 29. It's crazy. Just didn't have an.
I think I remember I heard you say that in your interview with Scott Lynch, and I was blown away in like the most positive way. I mean, what a catapult into this arena that from zero to nothing, all of this. Yeah. Look at that bookshelf behind you.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you, I'm a guy that goes. If I'm into something, I'm not just a little. Like it's balls to the wall. Like I'm a music guy. I'm like that with music. Now I'm like that with books. I used to, for an example, I used to have an 80 gig iPod when I was in high school, and I would sit and meticulously organize thousands of songs just because when I like something, I go all in and I want my music to look pretty, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was one of those things that it was like, oh, I love this. I have to have all of them.
Yeah. Okay, so now you got to tell me, since it seems very clear that you're organized, how do you organize your bookshelf? If not by, clearly not by color.
No, so I am not organized.
Oh.
My wife can back that up 1,000%.
Is she laughing? Is she cackling?
I'm organized with certain things. Like my desk is going to look messy, but I know where it's at. I know where everything's at. It looks like a mess to everybody else, but I'm organized in my way. But as far as my bookshelf goes, it's pretty new still. So there's not really a system yet. I've tried to keep on the top, like maybe special editions, which are more over there. And then like an indie shelf, which is a lot of my books, really. And then I'll keep certain James Rollins. He's got a lot of books. I've got a lot of his books. I'll keep him together. So there's not a set like system, but there will be. I don't know what it's going to be yet.
I don't doubt it.
We just built this little area. This is like outside of our home. And this side is the library and my wife's side is over there. She does like graphic art and T-shirts and all that fun stuff. So we got our little space outside the house that the kids can't terrorize.
That's awesome. Is it a shed or?
Yeah, it's like an outbuilding, 12 by 20.
Nice.
It's got everything you need. Except the bathroom.
I desperately want one of those. We have this gnarly wood rat problem where my husband's convinced that any outbuilding that gets built is just going to get completely overrun in like a matter of hours. So yeah, I envy
that won't happen. It's usually if you live in it and use it every now and then, at least it'll be just perfect.
Yeah.
It's good too. It's a little place outside the chaos, and me and her can go usually separately. Because the kids are inside, but it's fun and it's been a long time since we've had like a space, so it's nice. It's good for the mental health, I guess, if you say that.
Nice.
So when you're creating characters, how is the foundation set, or is it even set, or do you have an idea for your characters very vividly, or does it kind of come to you slowly?
It's pretty character dependent, I think. So a lot of characters for me kind of have a voice and I do mean in the terms of voice in the way that they show up on the page, but how they sound like in my head, which oftentimes, spirals into how their voice turns out on the page. That's easy. Those characters are really easy to write because I have a really solid idea of them from the start, and they almost they talk to me. I
know exactly what you're saying.
And other characters, there are certain things you have to do in stories. Like you have to have contrast and you have to have diverse perspectives. So some characters unfortunately do get sprung from that need. But no matter how they appear, I do a lot of work beforehand to really flesh out, what do they want? What kind of a day did they have before they're entering this scene? How's it going to inform how they show up on the page? How's it going to inform how they interact with this problem or this person? I do those character sheets, like silly stuff, like what do they listen to get pumped up?
No, I mean, and if it helps you, that's perfect.
Like metal bard music would be like Gunnar, for example.
I'm down with that.
Yeah. And yeah, so the character sheets are helpful, but a lot of times these preferences, these aversions, these likes, dislikes, they show up on the page, but subtly, very subtly. And yeah, so that's how it comes. But it's the characters that speak that, have the claim on my heart and have, more prominence in the story simply because they're easier to write.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Sounds just natural part of that process of, being more familiar with it. Because if you're having, those moments, and I wanted to kind of say, and I hope she don't mind, I'm sure she doesn't, because we have our interviews to watch on my channel. Yeah. ER Phoenix, who I have pulled up here, I thought you may be here, and I'm ready for this. I was ready. Look at these beautiful things. I had to throw them up. E.R. Phoenix. Wonderful. But
Great
her part of
titles.
her coming up with characters is dreams. She would have a dream, and basically everything was kind of mapped out, and the details were there. And talk about an inspiration. Very vivid dreams, like lucid dreams, to where it's like a scene in your book or a pivotal scene in your book.
That's epic.
And that is.
ER, did the lucid dreaming, does that just happen naturally, or have you done work pre-bed to make that happen? Because I know that this is a thing. I've never explored it in depth.
Elaborate down in the chat, and I'll throw it up. So world building. What's something you found to be, very important to make sure your world has in it to, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. So as you're writing and getting your world built, what is a pivotal part of that to transfer to the reader?
It's gotta work. Like it's, if it's a clock and there's all these cogs and gears, like it's gotta run. So I do, in coming up with anything, currency, religion, politics. For me, I have a hard time reading books. They don't have to be super logically detailed and intense, but if there are if they're being incorporated, they have to make sense. So authenticity, a sense of realism, which it effectually, allows the reader to further immerse in this world, because it might be totally abstract and outlandish and weird and different, but there is still this interior logic that has to be like ironclad for me. So, which means I end up spending hours researching how to make beer in the 15th century just so that I can nail one sentence, which I think every writer can relate to the hours spent on a single sentence. So, yeah. And, I think for me too, with this specific book, I was really rigorous with language. I tried not to use words that appeared in the lexicon after the 16th century, which was like,
I'm lost. I don't know what that means. The lexicon.
I just like the dialect, like in the dictionary, like words that didn't exist. Like I'm having so much fun. I had so much fun writing this book that I'm writing now, because it's a near future speculative novel, and I can use words like chaparral and fuck.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, excuse me, we can bleep that out, I suppose.
No, we're adults and we cuss all the time. Absolutely, fuck, shit, all that stuff. All those wonderful words.
So it's not perfect, but it was important to me for that language piece to really feel antiquated, appropriately antiquated.
I like that. So yeah, and do you think that is something that your readers will come to find a theme in the rest of your writing? You think that will be something that translates with you as you continue to write? A certain what vernacular, is that the right word?
Yeah, I think just like a rigor of style. I mean, the book I'm working on right now is very, very, very different. But I would just hope that there would be just really solid voice throughout the whole thing. So no, I don't think that my books, I think you can expect intense consistency in voice and authenticity to whatever period or place or people I'm trying to evoke. But they're really like kind of like Old English, really poetic style of writing. I've always loved that. So it was really natural for me to write my first book.
I really like that. And your answer sounds so much better than my questions did, because, well, I knew what I was trying to ask and I didn't necessarily make it sound that way, but you knew what I was trying to say, and that was perfect.
Yeah. Good.
The Old English sounding, now I would know nothing. I couldn't spit off any facts or the examples, but I do recognize it when I'm reading it or when I see it. That time frame, that time era, what the aesthetic is, what it sounds like. So that is very, very cool when somebody can capture that, because I sure couldn't. Again, I can see it, I can hear it, but I couldn't replicate it.
Yeah.
So let's see, starting with, you got the book published. what is a piece of advice that you would give someone wanting to, maybe they're working, their first draft's done. What's that next piece that you would give them that maybe you wish you would have known? Piece of advice, and whether they try to go trad or self-publishing or small press. What's something that you would want to let them know that you wish you would have known?
I think it's the advice I give is kind of has like a dual function, and that is just to make writer friends so that you can have them read your work and you can read their work. Beta reading for me, I gig work as a beta reader on Fiverr, and nothing has made my own ability to self-edit and write better faster than reading other people's work in early stages.
Write that down.
Yeah. And then the writer friends are helpful too, because I think one of the hardest things about this business, look, I'm like a introvert extrovert. I'm like good at being extroverted. My preference is introversion. But even for an introvert, writing is really isolating, and it can feel really dreary to hold this big idea, this big story in your head, and just sort of wonder like, what the hell am I doing? So to kind of off gas that intense isolation and the stagnation that can come with that, it really helps to have friends who are also isolating themselves and trying to, fabricate something really cool. So yeah, I think just get writing friends and ask to read their work as much as possible, and ask if they'll read your work.
That's wonderful. And I've heard similar things. It just kind of backs up what I mean by saying that is it backs up, and it makes a lot of sense. If I'm in my head about what I'm writing, taking a break from that and kind of helping somebody. And then also that help that you're reading, it's going to help kind of not only break the thought process, but maybe get you where you need to go. I love that. And I think a lot of people, especially me, I would need to hear that. I would be sheltered in, and I relate a lot with what you just said. I'm good at being an extrovert. I'm good at talking. I'm good at conversating, talking to anybody it doesn't matter who it is. But I would rather it just be me and my people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can relate with that a whole lot, and I can see myself just cooped up in my head. I'm just done with this. I'm not doing well. I need to take a break at that moment and maybe help somebody out and beta read. I'm reading. I'm gaining knowledge. I really, really like that answer.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I hope it helps you. I think in the earlier stages too, you get into these kind of darker places, and you almost don't realize that you need like to connect with other people and ideas until it's like a little too late. And then you get into this deep rut. So I think you get better too over time at just peppering that stuff in as you go along.
Absolutely. I love that. What's up, Tim, man? I'm glad that you're out of Twitter jail, by the way. They locked my man up for like a day or something.
Oh, snap.
You're back. Yeah, dude.
What did you do?
He's tatted and swole and everything. He came out of Twitter jail pumped. He's out.
They'll get
Good to see you here, brother. Could you point at a specific moment that you would say is a triumph for you? One that maybe you didn't especially think you did well, or perhaps didn't think much about at all, but ended up being something of what a triumph?
In my career or in the book?
It could be any, honestly.
Maybe just we'll list like stream of consciousness a few things, because there's been no singular like surreal moment that's trumped all others. But seeing my book on the library shelf, strangely, all like plastic wrapped with the barcode and the organization, like the numbers and the letters on the spine.
I do that to my books. I'm weird. I don't put the barcode, but I do wrap them.
Yeah. Oh, like it's good. It makes them last longer. Yeah. That for me, I was a total like just library gremlin growing up. I lived like maybe like a third of a mile away from the local library, and I would just bike over there all the time. So that was like more surreal.
The library was huge.
Yeah. I think that the library moment was like crazier than opening a box of books or seeing it on the shelf in a bookstore. That was like the one that really,
of course,
got me. Yeah, and then I don't know. I've had some readers, via reviews, which I know you're not supposed to read, but I do. I have felt like it's a triumph. No one review has gutted me. My husband's like, don't read those. And I'm like, it's fine. It's good.
He had solid advice, but I feel like I don't know if anybody could truly not read the reviews.
Yeah.
Like, we don't read a bunch of negative ones, but I don't
Yeah,
know if we could ever just not read them.
Yeah, there have been some bad ones, but like for the most part, like I it's the way that some people have read my book in what they've picked up. Like I had one reader, ask the question, is it possible that this book isn't in the past? And I was like, wow, that was one sentence. Good job. So that was a huge spoiler, but not for this book. So that, and then what readers have picked up on that I've purposefully put down, but then also like what I haven't. I had one reader say that the book was Robin Hood coded, and that was not my intention, but I love that. So just like, again, like interacting, it's so surreal having people read something that you work on for years and years and years, and absorb that into their own consciousness. So that meshing of minds has been the most fun.
They're sharing their personal experience with the thing you created. That's awesome. And I could totally expect, I mean, that's the epitome of what I think a triumph would be after creating something and having people experience it. That's amazing. Yeah. Right. Oh, okay. Sorry. Out of context. I'll put that one back down. So what are you working on right now and what's coming up for you?
I am working on a near future speculative novel. It is like the working title is Eden in the End. And it is set in a near future Santa Barbara, time not specific. And the premise is more or less a certain billionaire has his way and manages to convince 95% of the American population that Mars is perfectly habitable and we should all go there immediately. And so 95% of Americans are either in space or in a first come, first serve line to get there. So it's not a story about those people. It's a story about the people that decide to stay and eke out an existence in a beautiful paradisal, we live between the mountains and the sea here. It's 72 degrees, like 190 days of the year. What does it look like for anarchy to reign with a government that's completely abandoned its people to live in this kind of like anarchic state in this totally paradise type place? So the story is told over the course of the week, and the main character is just trying to throw an epic dinner party in the apocalypse. That's the story.
Heck yes, that sounds very, very interesting and something that I can't wait to read for multiple reasons. I think as of late, I've enjoyed like the utopia tropes, the dystopian tropes. What is it?
Solar punk is like the like more positive, solutions oriented future where we work together and find.
You said solar punk?
Solar punk, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna write. I haven't heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the subgenre of this work.
Okay, and that's good to know. The more that I find of those subgenres, I know there's a million. But if you're really wanting a specific taste, in a book, that's why they're there.
Yeah.
I used to think they were kind of, I don't know why there's so many specific, but now I totally get it. And I'm going to be looking into more in that genre because I think that that's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, to be completely honest, I told my story to another writer that I respect very much, who's been in the industry a lot longer than I have. And I talked to him about my story and he told me this is a solar punk story. I said, great, I'm going to use that. Thank you.
That's so cool, man. Just to get that pat on the back from somebody you look up to is just like the most excellent thing.
Yeah.
What's up, Ryan, man? It's good to see you, brother. I've been enjoying your little videos you've been making too. I just want to let you know that on Instagram, been enjoying them. You should keep doing them. Whenever you finish your book, wonderful author too, by the way.
Awesome.
Architects love solar punk for their renderings. All the trees. Okay.
Oh yeah.
He's familiar. So I skipped over a question. I'm going to go back to it. What does your writing process look like? So you're in the grind, you're getting words in every single day. Is there a word limit? Do you have harsh barriers that you have to cross every day? What is it for you?
Yeah, it's changed a lot over time because I started writing. I didn't have a kid, and then I had a tiny baby, and now I have a toddler. So it's changed over the course of time. Right now, I have him at school in the mornings, so those are my times. I'm not a night owl. I'm not somebody who can work all day and then keep creating at night. So
no, I like to.
Yeah. The mornings for me, I have a couple of hours in between other stuff I have to do. So that's largely where it happens. And I just try to open the file every day. I don't have an intense word count. God love a deadline, because I wrote a third of this last book in 2 months, and it took me 8 months to write the other 2/3 of it. So that's helpful. Having a deadline, whether artificial or otherwise, is really helpful. This last one I had, it was a semi-artificial one in the sense that it was for a workshop. So I did need to have the work done, but there wasn't any major career things riding on it. But yeah, I have a text thread with my email that is pretty psychotic. Like, I communicate.
So like that you add to and people can read and.
No one else reads it. I get ideas at all times of the day, not just in the morning. And so I will text myself, and then I will go through my email the next morning and cull bits and pieces from that. And then
that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's really helpful. It is also a hilarious record of, because it's not just the book, right? It's whatever I find interesting, or like, I don't forget to read this book or listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
It's an interesting record, because I've never been very good at consistently journaling. But this will be the hell of a record to look back on for sure.
I'm taking that up as of right now.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff all the time. I'm like, man, what was that I was thinking of? I told myself I remember it. Of course I don't. So that sounds like it's going to be helpful. I'm definitely doing that. I was mixing up web serials. I thought of the word. Yeah, you've heard of those?
No.
So from what I understand, they're not exactly that new. They've been doing them for a while, but the longest book ever is a web serial that I can't remember the name now, but they add to it periodically and on their website, and people just follow it. And anywho,
I was not thinking that you were talking about anything other than the food with milk.
What is it?
I thought you were talking about actual cereal. Like, all I heard was
I totally over my head. No, so like the web serials, and that's what I thought you were talking about. And that's fascinating to me that people can follow that. And not that they can, but that they do in so many. Because you don't get a lot at a time. Maybe it's that aspect that keeps them coming back, though. A little bit at a time. It's like, when's the next piece coming out?
Yeah.
Anywho, I love to hear the realistic writing process that you're talking about, because if you hold yourself to rigorous standards that are unrealistic as a mom, especially, because that's a job just like a dad or whatever.
Yes.
Not like a dad. I'm continuing. That is, things are going to pop up that you're never going to see before they happen. So keeping yourself with a realistic goal in mind every day is got to keep the mental health better. It's got to keep the stress off. It's got to make the work that you are doing better. So I applaud that.
Thank you. Yeah. You got to leave space. I do get really anxious though when I don't write. So there is like a middle ground to that. I've been sick on and off since my kids started preschool, like pretty badly in some places. And I have just got a really gnarly Dominion Online problem right now. I don't know if you've ever played that game. Don't start ever.
You said Dominion?
Dominion, yeah. Play it with your friends tabletop. Don't ever open it online. It's a bad idea.
I'm playing and now it's eluded me. Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay. I've heard of it, of course, but I don't it's an actual
PlayStation 5 RPG that I don't know if you can ever truly win. I think people do beat it, but every single thing takes forever, which is okay. It's fun, and I love it so far, but I don't think you could beat it. Like 1,000,000 hours you'd have to spend.
Yeah.
Anywho, I
You
think
don't
the
want
books
to know
are
how many
too.
hours.
So some stuff you're working on. I love the writing process that we spoke on. Um, who's somebody you think? It could be anybody, by the way. It could be an illustrator, could be a truck driver, could be a librarian that you look up to or find intelligent or creative for whatever reason you look up to them. That
Mm.
you think I would have a wonderful learning experience with them on my channel.
Oh, on your channel. Well, let's see. I mean, the first name I was going to say is so not adjacent to the genre. So
That's
his name
okay.
is Robert McFarlane, and he's pretty big time. He's a nonfiction nature writer. He writes absolutely incredible books about nature with a really specific slant for each one. So the Underland, or the Understory, excuse me, it's just like really profound set of essays all about the spaces that humans traverse and use and create underground. So there's an essay on the catacombs in Paris. There's an essay on
Ooh.
lime caverns in northern Yorkshire. I think there's a cave system in Norway, and so they're all about these spaces that we have communed with like throughout time. And I just love. I mean, he's got a really it's not fully mystical. It's very, he's a science guy and he's really specific, but he's really poetic and there it feels mystical when you're reading it. So he really brings the magic into the natural world in a way that I haven't seen anyone else.
That's a wonderful aspect of a nature writer. If they can also make you feel, somewhat like you said, mystical or it's bigger than I ever realized.
Yeah.
Nature that does exist is.
Yeah. Yeah. He brings in anthropology and biological writing. And he's just really curious. And I love the way that he makes me look at the natural world. So I just admire the work that he does. And
So Robert McFarland.
Robert McFarland, yeah.
Awesome.
He's got a book about rivers coming out in May.
Have you read James Rollins' books?
No.
Oh, as soon as you're talking about the catacombs and stuff like that, I'm gonna say that it's like a Da Vinci Code, but it's not. It's not.
Okay.
Similar aspects.
I love the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, it's great, but he is. It's a similar feel. He's also does like it's the Sigma Force novels, Catholic churches, the Vatican, stuff like that. So the Catacombs isn't one of the books that he wrote, and that reminded me of it. Anyway, I think you would enjoy it.
Rollins.
James Rollins. Rollins.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. I've really enjoyed hearing more about the process because really, I was telling you a little bit before we came on, I didn't necessarily know the route that I wanted to take. And I always want to think back on an interview after I've had them and know that I've learned something. And there hasn't been a single one yet that I haven't said that and it be true. So I just want to say I appreciate your time, and I'm sorry it took so long to get you on here, but I'm so glad we finally did. Guys, by the way, below in the description, Maressa's LINKTREE has all of her links. You can get anything you need, her socials, where to buy the books, all of that. I do apologize too. I've been having a cold, so I've been sniffly. Deal with it. I'm just sorry about that, but all the links are below in the description. And Maressa, it has been wonderful, and I wanted to thank you again.
Awesome. I really appreciate you for having me on and for receiving my book in the early days. I sent you an ARC and it was, you get ghosted a lot when you are a writer of unknown quantity and you're just cold calling and soliciting people like, hey, care, please. So I really appreciated you just being like, heck yeah, send it over. And then reaching out over a year later and being like, let's chat.
Oh my gosh. Of course. And I'm so glad you said that too, because that is one of the biggest things that I want people to know is like, I love authors of all the scales and every author is important to me. And I love talking about your guys' work. And if I can talk to other people to getting into it, that's wonderful, because I just put myself in that position, you know. Not everybody's going to start out here or there. Everybody's got their starting point, and I'm happy to be a part of every single aspect or wherever you're at in your career. I'm very, very excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
Beautiful.
All right. Anybody that's been here live, I appreciate y'all wherever you're at, morning, night. Have a good one. Maressa, thank you again. And for you all that will watch in the future, tonight I'm just scrambling my words up. I'm so sorry. Anyone that watches in the future, I do appreciate it. Again, links are in the description. We will see you guys next time. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. And we will talk soon. Good night, guys.
Good night.